before the opening chant, I just want to welcome everybody at the beginning of Kali Puja, which starts what's happening now in India, most likely. And here in Hawaii, although we won't be meeting together, we will be participating in a 11 p.m. to midnight inner worship and outer worship for some of us of Mother Kali. And we invite everybody to join us, even though, I mean, you can join us at the same time we're doing it, but I think you'll be asleep. But, you know, transcendent of time zones, go ahead and tune in, and we'll all do this together in our own time zones. So, and I do believe the trick-or-treaters will be gone by then, 11 o'clock p.m. So, all right. Begin the, all right. Om Dhanur Grihitva Upanishadam Mahastram Saram Yupashanashitam Sandhyaita Ayam Yatad Bhavakatena Chetasa Laksham Tarevaksharam Somya Vidhi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Taking as bow that mighty weapon furnished by the Upanishads, fasten to it the arrow of mind sharpened by thoughts of reality alone. Then drawing full strength, O friend, release and penetrate the mark, the imperishable Brahman. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all living beings. Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat. So this chant that I've just recited is very particular to the verse that we're working on today. And that Mahastram, Maha-astram, is the great weapon. And that great weapon is Om. O-M, A-U-M. And we will be diving into it. It is very deep, as many of us know. So let us begin by taking a look at the verse. This verse is unique in most, maybe even all of the verses of the Encomium, because there's no obstacle cited here. This one is just pure inspiration and bliss. Studying scripture, I was fascinated by the 24 cosmic principles and the 12 higher tattvas of Shaivism, and became awed to find them all expressed through the 4 manifestations of the word. So there's no problem there. He's had all these difficulties, and he's persevered through all of them. And now he's writing on that bliss of, if I can interpret here, he's riding along on this bliss of inspiration that comes from penetrating deeply into one's studies through the practice of manana, which includes not only making oneself remember what one studied or what one was told by one's teacher, but then also rolling it around in the mind so that we start to make connections with prior knowledge. And then we also meditate on it. Maybe that's part of our mananas. What we call meditation is often contemplation. And if we make part of that our manana on the things that we have studied, then it's like getting a hold of that prana that rises up and becomes that inward ascension prana, psychic prana. I forget which one that is, but anyway, you ride that up, and one connection leads to another connection, and suddenly you've left the world behind, and are writing this thread of inspiration. So we're going to dive into this verse today. So this verse gives us an opportunity to coalesce different angles of scriptural knowledge, and not just scriptural knowledge, but the direct knowledge that our teachers and our teachers' teachers have had. And in this way, recognize Om as the symbol and source of everything. So what does this include? Some of the different angles of knowledge that we have received or we will be receiving over our time and along the spiritual path will be that it includes time and phases of time. As we read and all that's contained in time. So as we read in the Mundaka Upanishad, it's not Mundaka, Mandukya Upanishad, all this world is the syllable Om. Its further explanation is this: the past, present, the future, everything is just Om. And whatever transcends the three divisions of time, that too is just Om. And so we know that when you have time, you also have space. And when you have space, you have the worlds of all different kinds and the beings in those worlds and the objects or conceptions in those worlds. So when we say that everything, the past, the present, and the future, everything is just Om, and what lies beyond that is also Om, that includes this space, Akasha, and its 5 divisions of physical space, energy space, mental space, thought space, the space of intelligence, and then the ultimate all-pervading of all dimensions space called Chid Akasha. And then what's also contained in Om when we talk about Om. Another angle of our knowledge is the nature of the true self, as well as the individual jiva and its experiences. So the all-pervading, indivisible Atman, and then as well as the Jivatman. These are included in that word. The cause of the universe and its manifestations is part of this Om. And what we're going to focus on next is that it is the seed of all knowledge and how that appears in the universe at all levels, which is the 4 stages of knowledge or the 4 manifestations of the word. We'll be taking a look at that chart in which Babaji has really fused the stages of word and the stages of knowledge. They are inseparable. So some of us here, I'm sure, have read what Swami Vivekananda has said in Raja Yoga about Om. In the first chapter, the first pada of the Yoga Sutras, I forget which, maybe I have that written down. It's verse 127, pada 1, verse 27. And it says that Patanjali has been talking about Ishvara and how he is the teacher of all teachers, of all prior teachers, so the ultimate teacher of all. And he says various other things about this Ishvara, and he ends it with his manifesting word is Om. Now, when we look into the commentaries of this particular verse, including Swami Vivekananda's, this word manifesting is often used frequently in the term of signifying. And in Babaji's translation, his name is verily Om. So backing up a little bit, in Indian philosophy, all the way back to the ancient seers, they realized Om as the greatest signifier for Brahman. They had realized that only Brahman exists. And that's a very famous phrase. It's Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Brahman alone exists, or all that exists is Brahman. There is the unchanging Brahman and the changing Brahman, and nothing else. This is what the seers realized. They were intensely interested in the relationship between word and meaning, the signifier and the signified. And this is something that comes up, and we're not going to go too deeply into it because it's almost a specialty of its own. But suffice to say that, well, I'll let Swamiji say it because it's coming up, but there's this link between the word and the meaning of the word, or the word and the thought that goes with it, the word and the object that the thought signifies. All these things are linked. They were also deeply interested in what's called utpatti, which means origins. They wanted to know the origin of everything. And as we've heard before, they began their search externally, looking out at everything and trying to know everything. And what they found was that you could not get to reality, to that one thing knowing, by which knowing all else is known, by focusing externally. So they started to go internally. And so this is the search for origins, and Om is part of that. So they did not get stuck in particulars. They were looking for the great generalization, that one thing by knowing which all else is known. So somewhere in the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, he's talking about generalizations. And one of the things he says is that existence is the greatest generalization. It's the ultimate generalization. So in this same way, we're going to be going back into Om. So what is the greatest generalization of knowledge, of all that can be known, of all that can be experienced, past, present, future, and coming back out of pralaya and starting all over again? That word is Om. So let's look at what Swami Vivekananda says when he does his commentary on verse 27 of the first pada of Raja Yoga. His manifesting word is Om. Swamiji says this: every idea that you have in the mind has a counterpart in a word. The word and the thought are inseparable. All right, just test that out for yourselves, everybody. I say the word apple, and immediately you have the thought or an image in your mind of the apple. If I say Sri Ramakrishna, you immediately have the image or an experience of Sri Ramakrishna pops up into your mind, and so forth. And if you go down the line with all that can be known, there's going to be an image or a sound or a thought that goes with it. He says, the word and the thought are inseparable. The external part of one and the same thing is what we call the word, okay? The external part of this word and thought are inseparable. The external part is the word, and the internal part is what we call thought. No person can, by analysis, separate thought from word. So now he goes into steps in explaining why Om is the best universal word to represent divine reality from any angle. A symbol, i.e. a word, is the manifester of the things signified. Even if the things are not present, there will be thousands who will know them by their symbols. There must be a natural connection between the symbol and the thing signified. Then, when the symbol is pronounced, it recalls the thing signified. The commentator says the manifesting word of God is Om. Now, in the next part, Swamiji explains why Om is both the best universal word for God and is usable by everyone. He says there must be a generalization among all these words, some substratum, some common ground of all these symbols. And by symbols, he means words. And he means words in any language. And that one which is a common symbol, which is the common symbol, will be the best and will really represent them all. And then he goes on to say, in making a sound, we use the larynx and the palate in the mouth as the sounding board. Is there any material sound of which all other sounds must be manifestations, one which is the most natural sound? And he asserts that it is Om. Om is such a sound, the basis of all sounds. The first letter, so when you go to pronounce Om, it begins with A. The first letter A is the root sound, the key, pronounced without touching any part of the tongue or palate. M represents the last sound in the series, being produced by closing the lips, and the U rolls from the very root, the root of the throat, to the end of the sounding board, the mouth. So just think about that and try it for yourself. Pronouncing ah, and then all the different sounds. You, the word you rolls from the bottom to the top. So it represents all other sounds that can be made. That means all other consonants that can be made with the tongue. And then to M. And then elsewhere, somebody says that this is why throughout the world, human babies, the word for mother, let's put it this way, the word for mother is something like amba or ama or mom. These are the root sounds right there. And the thing about you, when you combine it with a in Sanskrit, it produces that, oh, it has that kind of O sound. So he goes on, thus Om represents the whole phenomena of sound producing. As such, it must be the natural symbol, the matrix of all the various sounds. It denotes the whole range and possibility of all the words that can be made in any language. And if some of us are thinking about one of those African languages that has clicks in it, those clicks are between ah and mm. They're all happening still with the palate and the tongue. Apart from these speculations, we see that around the word Om are centered all the different religious ideas in India. All the various religious ideas of the Vedas have gathered themselves around this word Om. What has that to do with America or England or any other country? Simply this, that the word has been retained at every stage of religious growth in India, and it has been manipulated to mean all the various ideas about God. Monists or Advaitists, dualists, qualified non-dualists, separatists, and even atheists took up this Om. So it represents every possible idea. Now, the next part, the word, then he goes on to say why other words are not quite so good. Om has become the one symbol for the religious aspiration of the vast majority of human beings. Take, for instance, the English word God. It covers only a limited function. And if you go beyond it, you have to add adjectives to make it personal or impersonal or the absolute reality. So with the words for God in every other language, their signification is very small. This word Om, however, has around it all the various significances. As such, it should be accepted by everyone. So I've read this many, many times and just took it on faith because Swami Vivekananda said it. He's a seer after all, so it has to be true. But then I heard another rendition of this, that because it was also put in terms of the English language, it just suddenly solidified this teaching for me. And this comes out of Swami Mukhinanda's small book called Om, Gayatri, and Sandhya. And he said, and basically, I'm not going to read what he said. I'm just going to kind of give some sound bites of it. So he goes and he talks about how all words are made out of unit sounds, such as are denoted by A to Z in the English alphabet, right? So all of our words in English are put together from the alphabet of A to Z. Those are all unit sounds. And if we want to expand this idea a little bit more, whenever we transliterate the words of another language, we put them in, we call it Romanization. We put them into English so we can pronounce them. So we use our alphabet to form all words and concepts, just like every other culture and people who have a different language. They use their alphabet or their idioforms to create words and concepts. Thus, back to English, A to Z can be a symbol of the knowledge of the whole of reality. And this is getting more to the point that I'm trying to bring out, hopefully successfully, is that back where Swamiji says you cannot have a word without a thought to go with it, without a meaning to go with it. It always signifies something. So therefore, within the alphabet of English, all that can be expressed is there, A to Z. So A to Z represents everything because the name and the thing it signifies is the same. Now, this is an idea that we've come up across when we practice mantra and japa of the mantra, that the name and what it signifies is identical. There's even this very lovely story out of the Puranas, it must be, that Sri Krishna, his ministers wanted, and I know I've repeated this, but maybe somebody here hasn't heard it. His ministers wanted to know what was equal to him because he was God incarnate. So what was equal to him? Well, in their small minds, they put him on a scale and on the other scale, it was a balancing scale. They started just filling it with everything out of his treasury and furniture, everything out of the palace. They just piled it up with elephants and everything. And Sri Krishna was still always heavier. And Rukmini, his consort, saw this and laughed. And she went and she picked a leaf off of a tree and wrote the name Krishna on it, told them to take everything off the other scale. And she put it on there and the two balanced. So, this is meant to show us something very, very deep here. So the letters themselves represent all that can be signified and are not different from it. This is the leap that we take here. And he goes on to show how, oh, excuse me. So then he goes on to show how Om works a little bit better for this. It's the Sanskrit alphabet is more scientific, etc. He goes on to show all of that. So now that we have felt this in our own language, A to Z, then we can see how the A to M in the Sanskrit alphabet and what Swamiji said, which Mukyananda also code, that all the kinds of sound production and how it's produced is there implicit in A to M, then we can see how powerful is this idea of Om. And I'll close with one little quote here. He says, now the AUM, known as the matras of Om, are symbolic not only of the beginning, middle, and end of all the words and of the entities and concepts represented by them, but also of all the worlds, all the lokas, as well for the purposes of meditation. So this is an important thing. We are all, I think, here familiar with waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, right? And we know that we are to meditate on Om, contemplate it, matra by matra, and at the end of it is the turiya, beyond the and the way he talks about this is that the inarticulate humming sound that lingers after pronouncing Om, just like after a gong is sounded, this represents the amatra, beyond vibration, the turiya, or the absolute. This Om is symbolic of the entire existence, phenomenal as well as nominal, the macrocosm as well as the microcosmic, personal Ishvara as well as the impersonal Brahman Atman. So in this sense, this Om is the most fitting signifier of the infinite supreme divine reality. So tasya vachaka pranavaha. That's the Sanskrit for that verse out of the Yoga Sutras. So I hope we've taken this slowly enough and deeply enough for you to feel the inspiration or to intuit or get a glimpse of that inspiration that the rishis had as they would meditate, and the seers and their students, and then on down the line through millennia, that they felt upon this word Om that represents everything. So let's take a look at the bell chart. Excuse me, I see that there's a Udana. Thank you, Chaitana. Remember when I was talking about writing that prana to the psychic prana? That one's called Udana. Thank you, in case anybody didn't see that. So let me pull up the Om Kata, the Great Cause chart. I always call it the bell chart, and because of that, I sometimes have a hard time finding it. So I know this one is one of our real workhorse charts of Babaji's. And it's all based upon that wonderful statement of Sri Ramakrishna that we'll read in a bit, where he literally saw all of this, that like a bell, and for him, the sound of the bell was Tom. Let me fix my screen here. Tom, Tom. And out of this Om, signified by the bell, came out all of these different ways of looking at the universe. So we have signified in the bell here, representing Om. We have from Pralaya coming out Brahmaloka, Taparloka, Janaloka, Maharloka, all the different worlds. So all the worlds come out and they all go back in as the sound decays. So here we are, Burloka. And if we're psychic, we might have little glimpses of Bhuvarloka. And if we get into deeper meditations, we'll encounter the inner heavens of Svarloka through Saguna, Savikalpa samadhis, Savija samadhis, where there's still a sense of ego and other, and then on up. And these are the worlds where human beings are here, the ancestors and lower spirits are there, the gods, the lower gods and goddesses are here. The Maharloka is where we begin to see the saints. Janaloka and Taparloka are rishis and ascetics and all who are broken free of the wheel of transmigration, because that all happens here. So all the way to Brahmaloka, or sometimes called Satyaloka, which is the last stop before merging into Brahman. And and then unmanifested Prakriti. It represents unmanifested Prakriti. And what comes out of that? And we're going to take a look at this. I want us to see this, and then we'll take a look at this through the 4 stages of the word. Then, comes the cosmic mind, the cosmic and also the individual intellect, or at the cosmic level, it's intelligence. Then there's ego at both cosmic and individual levels. And then manas, the individual mind. And then the tanmatras, the subtle substances that go to make further, eventually the great gross elements, but also the karmendriyas, and combined with manas, the gyanendriyas. So all of those go out and they come back in. That's the other thing we have to remember. These things evolve out and they evolve back in. And notice that these are all words, and I'm using more words to describe them. And all these words bring something up, and they're all contained in Om, Om eternal. So then we have, these represent waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, Jagrat, Swapna, and Shushupti, and then Turiya. And then they're related to the gross, subtle, and causal bodies. Sharira means bodies. And then here are the five akashas, the physical realm, the energy realm, the realm of thought, the realm of intelligence, and then the realmless realm, the realm of pure consciousness, Chidakasha. So out of Yoga Vishishta, Svayambhuva Manu says, all universes in space and time lie within Om. With knowledge of the word and how cosmic projection goes forth, one can follow the shining rays of Jnana wisdom straight to the source, penetrating all the worlds. Then the mother of the word will immerse one in the ocean of consciousness. So let's take a look at Sri Ramakrishna's wonderful quote here. It has been revealed to me, he says, that there exists an ocean of consciousness that is without limit. From it comes all things of the relative plane. Therefore, I give the illustration of the bell's sound. Hum. The strike of the bell is like the falling of a great weight into the ocean. Waves rise on all sides. Spiritually speaking, the relative rises from the absolute. And then what is that relative? It's the causal, subtle, and gross worlds and bodies. All these, the relative rises from the absolute. The causal, subtle, and gross worlds and bodies appear out of this great cause. The waking, dreaming, and deep sleep phases rise out of Turiya. And just as millions of Brahmandas, those are worlds, rise in the ocean of Chitakasha, they merge in it again. The Leela merges into the Nitya, and it emerges again from the Nitya. And the other thing that he said about this is that no time was passing as he was seeing this. So in preparation for this class, at one point I asked Babaji about the 4 stages of the word. And one of the things that he said to me about that was that it had, that although Sri Ramakrishna, he was out beyond time. And so he could see all of this rising and no time passing. And if we think about eternity and try to think about it as absolute eternity, as soon as we think of the word eternity, we're also thinking non-eternal. It's like the only way with this dual mind, this manas, that we can understand eternity is to put a boundary around it. But we know intellectually from our studies and the words of the seers that that's not what's really going, that's not what eternity is. So it stands outside space and time. So this absolute eternity, if you take 100 yugas or a great manvantara, and these are great, huge expanses of time, or think of the whole length of what the scientists say our universe has existed. If you take that and put it in, and think of it in terms of eternity, it is a pinpoint. And if you take the life of a human being in terms of eternity, it is pinpoint. If you take the life of a quark or a neutron or whatever that was that the scientists discovered that existed for only a billionth of a second, in terms of eternity, it is 1 point. In other words, they are all equal. So when I asked whatever question it was that I asked Babaji, he talked about Om in terms of the matras, A, U, and M, not in terms of the matra, but he talked about it in terms of time and how everything manifests out in time and comes back in time. And remember, in that time, it's all happening from the standpoint of Turiya, or the absolute reality. It's all happening simultaneously. So anyway, keep that in mind when we get to the 4 stages of the word. All right, now, one thing that this chart and Sri Ramakrishna's statement implies but doesn't specifically state is the higher spandhas that Shaivism gives us. So let's take a look at this. We're not going to dwell long on this. I just want to show it in the context of the 24 cosmic principles, which most of us are much more familiar with. But when you think about it, what is it that prompts this creation? You know, this beginning with unmanifested prakriti, which then gives way to the mahat, the cosmic mind. So there must be something else going on. And that's what is described very, very subtly through these 12 higher spandhas of Shaivism. So we're just saying that, and we're going to see how some of this fits in. Well, maybe we'll review it after we take a look at the 4 stages of the word. But the things that we begin to see is knowledge force combined with intelligent expression. This has to show up. So this is called Sadashiva. Ishvara, the Lord of the objective worlds. This would predate, so to speak, this would predate Mahat. Pure knowledge has to be in existence. The formless material of the worlds, or the diluting power called Maya. There needs to be a place for this. And that, again, precedes unmanifest Prakriti or Mahat. And time and infinity has to come in, phases of time. The awareness of differentiation and the animating power of Shakti has to be present. And the cosmic laws and their natural order, there has to be the seed idea of that before the rest of those 24 cosmic principles can happen. And there has to be a power of attraction and attachment and involvement. And then we have the individual soul, the true individual soul called Purusha. So those are all the different things. And, it's just touching ever so lightly on them. And all that has to be present before the cosmic principles that we see in Samkhya, which are those principles of the 4 principles of mind, all the way down to the earth element. So it's vast, vast, vast. So now so we've touched on, in terms of that verse, oops, where'd that go? Here we are. We've now touched on the 24 cosmic principles and the 12 higher tattvas. And I could go deeper into the 24 cosmic principles, but most of us are very, very familiar with those. I have some, if you want to look at it in footfalls, it's on page 349. And if you want to look at those 36 cosmic principles in footfalls, go to page 359. And the great cause, Omkara, the great cause, is footfalls page 323. So now let's get into the 4 stages of the word and the 4 stages of knowledge. This also is a teaching that we've heard many times. The 4 stages, just to put them out, is para, the supreme. And this is pure knowledge, abiding as Atman Brahman. And it's the essence of Om, Shabda. It's also where we find the formless form of the Mahashakti. It's I and fullness. So it's static, stationary, and imperishable. So this is the supreme. And the thing about this level is there's not even seeds present in it. And yet, without this reality, the seeds do not exist. The seeds come into play in Pashanti. And years ago, when Babaji was first giving us this teaching, he spoke of Pashanti as looking one of the descriptions for it is looking out. But it's a looking out that is only in potential. And that's why we see this Om symbol here. It's representing the bijams. It's like not only the great bijams, like Om itself, where it can be heard, but the bijams that we find in our mantras, but also the bijams that bring forth the manifestation of everything in the 36 cosmic principles. So it's the potential for manifestation. It's a pure vibration. So, and in one of my readings, what I saw was that this is where one would actually hear Om. Om is the uncaused, unstruck sound in the para. But here it becomes that pure vibration. In the Madhyama stage, and then now we're now beginning to look at this as knowledge, okay? Let's not just think about it as the bijams, or just, oh, we're going to get a world out of this. We're going to get many universes and worlds out of this, all the heavens and all of that. It's, we're thinking that, but we're thinking just the object and not the actual word. It all starts with this pure vibration, this pure thought vibration. And so this is the first stage of knowledge, is what I'm saying. First stage of outward going knowledge. Pure knowledge is up here. But the knowledge that will later be associated with words shows up here. Now, in the Madhyama stage, the intermediary, this is thought vibration as concepts. These weren't concepts yet, but now it's concept, and thought and sound and meaning conjoin. And this is natural. In some commentary that I was looking at in the Yoga Sutras, a lot of thought power is put into thinking about how, whether or not the connection between words and the thoughts and objects that go with them, if they're a natural connection, is it something that recurs after pralaya? Does it come back in the same way? Anyway, there's a lot of thought that goes around that. But suffice it to say, as far as we're concerned, this is where concept, thought, sound, and meaning conjoin. And I want to read to you something out of the Mandukya Upanishad. And it's out of the section where we've already learned about the 4 quarters of the Atman, which are waking dream, deep sleep, and Turiya. These are the 4 different kinds of experiences or states of consciousness that the individual, the Atman, assumes. And we're more familiar with the first 3, of course, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. But Turiya is always present as the background. But then as the Upanishad continues, the Rishi connects it to Om and the mantras of Om, and then signifies those 4 quarters of the Atman with the 3 mantras and the amatra of Om together. And in what is related to the Madhyama state, which would be the dream state, the U of Om, he says, Taijasa, remember that's the name of, it's who we are, what our consciousness is called when we're in the dream state. um, Taijasa, the dreamer, who has the dream state for his field, is the letter U, the second part of Om, because they are both superior and in between. In other words, it comes after A of Om, and it's in between the A and the M, okay? One who knows this becomes great in knowledge and the equal of all. So it becomes great in knowledge. So think about that. This area of Madhyama is naturally linked with the dream state or the inner heavens, and where concept, thought, sound, and meaning conjoin, where knowledge is becoming more tangible. And so those who can rise in their meditations into samadhis of this area become great in knowledge. And then finally, Vaikari, the rudimentary, and this is where gross sound or speech occurs. This is where knowledge is made manifest and forms and objects appear. So remember, this wasn't just about getting to the point of pronouncing words. The idea and the fact, and this is what we saw in the bell chart, that from that Om, not only do we get the words, we get what the words signify, and what the words signify eventually become objects. So when we hear that the universe is thought made concretized, that is what this teaching is showing us. This is what our Avadut poet of the Encomium is bringing out, what was thrilling him by saying that, seeing that the 24 cosmic principles and the 12 higher levels of Shaivism were all present in, well, let me see how he put it. I'm going blank here on how he put it. He said, studying scripture, I was fascinated by the 24 cosmic principles and the 12 higher tattvas, and became awed to find them all expressed through the 4 manifestations of the word. So I hope the point is being made here that, knowledge is made manifest. That means forms and objects are appearing. And this is how how we can look at an object. We look at the object, the word comes to mind. We think of the word, the object comes to mind. And we take it back in, and we can meditate on it, and it can take us right back through Om and into higher and higher states, just involving from Vaikari all the way back to Para. So the next thing to talk about as far as this goes is, this is maybe a lot, but this is kind of like our treat now. So in Swami Mukyananda's book, remember he talked about how you can meditate on the 3 matras and the amatra of Om, the shvara of Om, in many different ways, according to what one wants to meditate on. And we've seen this, Babaji has showed it to us, like in this chart. These are Vedic Triputis that he's listed here in terms of the matras, A, U, and M. And remember, when we get to the M, where everything dissolves back, just like we saw in that last chart, everything draws back to just pure vibration and no concepts yet, no forms yet, right? And that is the jumping off place to the supreme and absolute. So in Swami Mukyananda's, so these are to be meditated on. And as we meditate on them, we get knowledge. Anytime we spend time contemplating something, we get new knowledge. It's not new in the sense of, oh, nobody else has seen it. We begin to see that knowledge that already exists and which is inherent in us at deeper levels that we're not paying attention to when we're absorbed in the waking state. So as soon as we start to contemplate, we're drawing ourselves from the waking state into the quote unquote dream state, but we're bringing our waking awareness into it, which is also what we want to do with M. So I want to show how Swami Mukyananda also does this, but he brings in the Turiya section of it. What does it do? Those three triputi, what do those triputis, those threesomes, resolve into? And he also gives it an object of, what is your object of meditation? Well, I want to meditate on reality. Well, here's a way to meditate on reality. Meditate on satyam, truth, on jnanam, wisdom, on infinity, and think about their relationship to each other, and then merge them all in Brahman. And then another form of reality, sat, existence, chit, consciousness or knowledge, ananda, bliss, and resolve it all into Brahman. And then if we want to take for an object of meditation the Paramatman, then this would be the cosmic Atman. Then we would think of the Virat, which is the gross body of Ishvara, which is all the worlds in Burloka, all the physical realms. And then Hiranyagarbha, all the inner realms within, all the kingdoms of heaven within. And then Ishvara, the witness and ruler of all of that, and merge all of that into Brahman. And then we can do that with the Jivatman, Vishva. That's what our consciousness is called in the waking state, Taijasa, what our consciousness is called in the dream state, and Pragya, what our consciousness is called in the deep sleep state, and resolve that into Turiya Brahman, into Brahman. So anyway, there's others. And right down here, what if we want to meditate on sound? That's the object of our meditation, Shabda, which also means Om. So Vaikari, Madhyama, and Pashyanti, right? What we just studied. This is where Vaikari is where we have gross sound and differentiation, where we hear the sound with these ear flaps on our heads, and objects are there before us. And then Madhyama, which is where thought and concepts conjoin, and Pashyanti, pure vibration, and then finally Para. And now it's very significant that he has put this with the three, I guess these must be the three primary Vedas, Rik, Yajus, and Sama. And Om as the Amatra, the Turiya part. Okay, look over here. Object of meditation, A-U-M, Turiya. So you keep that going here. So we have this idea, and the rishis thought of the Vedas as eternal, and that they were eternally manifesting, and that the worlds came out of Veda, not the books, the Vedas, but the source of Veda. And so that all resolves naturally into Om. What if we want to think, what if our object of meditation is samsara? Okay, this means we want to get out of samsara. And this is like what Babaji took us through during the seminar that we just had. We would then meditate on birth, on life, on death. And we might want to call this birth and rebirth here, life and death, and and merge it all into liberation. So these are wonderful forms of meditation that we can look at. There was another one here. Ooh, what if we meditate on the idea of experience? Then what is it that our experiences have in the A? The A would be delusion, moha. We are fascinated by all the particulars of the waking state of our experience in delusion. And then there's also pain. There's also pleasure. But bliss is beyond all of that, this ananda bliss. This isn't a temporary bliss. This is an absolute bliss. So we can think about what's the nature of pain? What's the nature of pleasure? What's the nature of delusion? Which is, anyway, so yeah, we can these are all different ways of deepening our understanding. And I just saw that we're over time, and I apologize. But this really does conclude this class. And I will have a closing chant, and I'll stay on afterwards in case anybody has comments or questions.
Oh, Annapurna, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I just want to say thanks for this great class. I also posted a link in the chat. There's a lecture of Babaji's that came out a few days ago on the Advaita Academy website called Brahmapada, How Seamless Awareness to Sports on 4 Feet, which is very much in keeping with what you were teaching here. And it's a beautiful 1 hour teaching. So I highly recommend everybody check it out.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Om mantranam jiva bhuta tuya smrita ya shakti rupaya tattahina vadarohe nishpalaha sharada bhavat. She whom the seers realized as the imperishable Shakti is the meaning in all the verses and sutras of the revealed scriptures. Without her, O fair one, all the tattvas would be like clouds with no rain. She is the perfect I consciousness inherent in the multitude of words, and the essence, the secret of all mantras, and the essence of non-duality. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all living beings. Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat. Namaste, and thank you, everybody.